So back in 5th grade and into 6th grade, when I first got into Warriors, me and my group of friends would LARP Warrior Cats on the playground until we weren't allowed to anymore. Around this time, I also started to collect any cat figure I could get my little hands on, and then these impromptu Warriors figures replaced any need I had to do some cat LARPing. Since I didn't have the money or resources to just buy a bunch of actual cat figurines, I used anything that was cat adjacent. In my tub here, you can see I have some dogs. There's even some hyenas. There's a wolverine in here as well. There's also just a variety of brands in this tub. A good portion of these I got in a Ziploc bag at a consignment shop. Some of these are from Barbie sets. I used to have more Littlest Pet Shop in here, but they seem to have vanished. When I broke open this container for this video, I found this list of names, and I don't remember who some of them refer to. It breaks my heart just a little bit, because some of these I remember playing with all the time. Like this Playmobil Lioness, she was a staple member of the clan. Through deduction and looking through the list, I'm pretty sure her name was Morning Light, but I just don't remember. And like this German Shepherd, I'm pretty sure his name was Wolfstep, but I don't remember anything else about him. But this video isn't about all the ones that I don't remember. This video is about the ones I do still vividly remember. I wanted to go through them, draw them as true Warriors OCs, and talk a little bit about their characters and any interesting tidbits I remember about them. I've been wanting to make a longer video for a while, and as I'm writing the script, I'm hoping that this video hits at least 30 minutes. So if you like original characters, think the official Warrior Cats minifigures are a little disappointing, and are looking for some nostalgia, strap in, folks. One last thing though. If you have any Warriors minifigures that you have or still play with, I desperately want to see them. I find the concept of making homemade Warriors toys so charming. I would love to see other people make videos, link images, or just talk about the ones that you have in the comments. I am desperate. I have to know. I think it's so cute. Tell me, please. Now moving on into the meat of this video, I'm amused to introduce you all to Mud Clan. But I'm going to be going through the clan through their different roles. So first up, I want to talk about the various leaders of Mud Clan from over the years. Firstly, I'd like to start off with a character, Cheetah Fang. For the longest time, I didn't know how to spell cheetah, so his name was spelled without an H for a while. As I'm sure you can see, he does have a missing paw, because he went missing after a play session in the front lawn, and the lawnmower found him before I did. I'm pretty surprised he isn't more beat up than that, but alas, he is missing a paw. His character was always quote-unquote the bastard, and normally played the role of villain. According to this list that had been with the minifigures, I had assigned him to be leader, which was a surprise to me as an adult. It must have been a very dark time for the clan. As a leader, I imagine him to be somewhat of a MCU Loki figure, very good with all of the day-to-day organizing and leading and stuff, but anything outside, like the well-being of the clan, like negotiating with other clans, he does not care at all. He can take care of his own clan, but anything more than that, he cannot do it, and he's a bit selfish in his leadership role. While his action figure is pretty large, as a villain, his intimidation was more from his mind rather than any brute strength that he had, and I wanted to reflect that in his new design. While he might lose in a fight, he could manipulate half the clan to turn against you. Cheetah Fang is a very capable warrior. His strength lies in his agility, much like a cheetah. He's also super charismatic in a very devious way. I really liked how his design came out. He honestly looks like a mix of a truly evil longtail and a cheetah, which is exactly where I wanted the vibes to be. You could see I originally had given him all 4 legs, but then I decided to change it to reflect the minifigure more. While his leg did snap off outside of the canon of play, I decided to keep it because it is now an integral part of his physical minifigure. Next up, we have Blacktail, who I've labeled as Black Star. I had a really hard time trying to design him. As you will see, I went through 3 different iterations, and he was the only one I had trouble like this with. Blacktail was one of the original cats that I got in this collection I made. He came in like a tube of cats from like a Michaels, I think. I know some of you know what I'm talking about. He was the default leader for the majority of the time. Specifically, he was inspired by Tallstar, a very dependable leader that everyone likes majority of the time. But Blacktail is like if Tallstar was just smooshed down a little bit. I really like his figurine. Like, look at his face. He just looks like a dependable guy. He was always very serious and didn't play around much. He had a low-key rivalry slash parental relationship with another character I'll be showing, Firespots, who was also one of the originals. They were like foils to each other. While Blacktail was always like the serious authority, Firespots was like a skater boy full of energy. I do think it's pretty funny that while pretty much all of the storylines over the years are gone from my memory, the characters' personalities were consistent enough that that is burned into my memory. But thinking about Firespots and Blacktail's relationship, I decided to make them actual parent and sibling. So Blacktail is now Firespots' father, which kind of explains their dynamic a little bit more. During his second design that I did, I had also decided that I wanted to make Blacktail the brother of another senior warrior called Brian Fur, who I'll also be showing later. So I tried to mimic it, give him the same stocky body type. But at the end, it just wasn't good enough, so I had to start over again. But I think the third and final one came out the best, so I'm sticking with that one. Now, going into the last of the leaders, this guy has gone by two names. When looking through old art, I saw a drawing I did where he was named Birchstar, and I remember that as his more recent name and role. When talking to my roommate, Dandelion Lynx, who is on YouTube and you should definitely check out, he reminded me that he also used to be called Barley Whisker, and that was his like original warrior name. I'm pretty sure he was played with using both identities for about the same amount of time. I did also notice that the Birch Star drawing was made during my phase where I drew paws with 3 toes because of the Rise of Scourge. But anyway, I believe Barley Whisker was inspired in part by Barley, if it wasn't obvious enough. You might sense a running theme with some of these names. Anyway, his character was always just like a supportive fella. He was a better best friend or supporting sidekick than an actual leader. As Birchstar, out of the 3 leaders, he's the mid-tier in terms of quality leadership, I would say. He made a good deputy, and that's why he would have been chosen to be a leader, but probably should not have gone to actually become leader when given the chance. I remember as a kid, I got his minifigure from the Salvation Army, and I needed to know where he came from because I honestly didn't recognize him. And it surprised me when I found out he came from the Princess and Pauper Barbie models. This surprised me particularly because I had gotten the Princess Barbie and Serafina, like, when the movie came out. And he also just does not look like Wolfie to me, so I honestly was surprised. Fight me, I guess, if you disagree. But because his minifigure was originally from a franchise, I wanted to change the design a little bit more. So to me, anyway, he still has the same like vibes, but he looks a lot different. And I decided to stick with the name Barley Whisker because I like that name more. I also gave him a mustache because I really like I really like warriors with mustaches. And now we move on to the medicine cats, personally my favorite section of characters. And first up is Snake Pelt, one of my favorite characters in this whole video, easily in the top 3. Her defining character traits are always being old and cranky. She very much followed in the footsteps of Yellowfang and Jayfeather. Like all the medicine cats of Mud Clan, she didn't play the role of medicine cat consistently. When she wasn't, she was either an elder or an elderly senior warrior. Although being a medicine cat is where I like her best. As a medicine cat or a senior warrior, either way, she was always one of the big players within the clan. She always had a lot of authority. When leadership within the clan wasn't great, she would be an alternative source of leadership, but in like a begrudging way. Her original name was Snake Pelt, but according to this list, I had last named her Snake Hiss, which I honestly kind of dig, but I think I like Snake Pelt just a little bit more because it's just more classic. Within this clan, I like the idea of medicine cats not necessarily having a connection to StarClan and having a connection to StarClan being a different role, which I will get into later. So all of the medicine cats, at least having some training as a warrior, and working as a warrior in some instances, I really like as just a flavor of world building. So all of these medicine cats, I feel like, did serve their time as a warrior in some regard. Snakepelt used to also consistently have a mate. It was a lion figurine, but I honestly don't remember his name. He made no lasting impression on me. So Snakepelt doesn't need a man. She's a girl boss. He has been he has been removed from the Mud Clan roster. I couldn't decide on what eye color to give her, so I ended up just giving her two different colored eyes, and I think that looks pretty cool. I did try to make her design reminiscent of like a lion, also somewhat inspired by Zira, as you can tell from the forehead stripe. But I think her design came out really cool. I love the spots on her legs. I think those are awesome. And next up, we have Mudfeather, who is my favorite 100% for sure. I also got this figurine at my local consignment shop, and I named him after his tail, obviously. I love when long haired cats have just like a poofy tail that looks like a feather, and he looks like he's got muddy paws, so his name is Mudfeather. While more often than not he was a medicine cat, like I mentioned before, he also played a warrior sometimes. But I also remember that I believe he was considered leader for a short time in the very beginning. Even though I don't remember specifically, I suspect he had something to do with the clan's name being Mud Clan. It's just been Mud Clan for so long I don't really remember where the name came from, but I suspect it's him because he's my favorite. But Mudfeather was responsible for interpreting the most prominent and important omens. He was also one of the main authority figures within the clan, like Snakepelt and Blacktail and Firespots. While Mudfeather was more soft spoken and kind, he was not a pushover. He was also best friends with Firespots, who again, we will be getting to, I promise. So while he was much more soft spoken, he was a more comforting authority figure than, say, Snakepelt. He was also usually apprenticed under Snakepelt, and would take over when she would retire. I believe he was also inspired by Feather Whisker, who was like my favorite medicine cat in the series. Truly, he was taken before his time. I feel like Mudfeather isn't one to panic or freak out. If I had to describe him in one word, it would be chill. He's just a cool guy who you would instantly trust to take over and handle any situation with grace and tact. And now for the last medicine cat, we have Blue Sayer. If you watched my original redesigning Fuzzy Fire and Darkheart video, I mentioned how I'd copied down all of the combinations for the old Warrior Cats name generator, and the chart is where I got the name Blue Sayer from. So if your name starts with the letter Z and your hometown also starts with the letter Z, then your warrior name would have also been Blue Sayer. Sayer is such a weird suffix. Are there are there any canon characters with that suffix? I have to look this up. If you look up Sayer in the Warriors Wiki, the only article that comes up is for Dan Jolly. So I'm going to say no. There are no canon characters with the name Sayer. I could be wrong, though. But Blue Sayer was inspired by like a combination of Blue Star and Spotted Leaf. She's a very confident, headstrong character. Very competent, more so than probably any of the boys. But she has a very cool demeanor, even if she is very sassy and for sure a girl boss. But I think her design is one of my favorites out of the whole video. I really love like cream torties. I think it came off really well with her design, and I think it has the same energy that the minifigure also had. It's kind of hard to see in the picture, but the minifigure is painted like blue, but like ticked with like a cream color. And so I think just like a cream blue tortie was a good compromise. I think because her name is Sayer, I like to think that she does also have a really strong connection to Star Clan, but she doesn't really treat it as like a big deal. It's just kind of like whatever to her. Star Clan can be a little bit too involved, if you know what I mean. And so she tends to not treat them necessarily with a lot of respect, especially when they're being overbearing and a bit too controlling. Blue Sayer is essentially like a straight man who can call out the bullshit of her ancestors. And now we're finally getting to some of the alternate roles that I've hinted at earlier. And first up is a classic character who was originally named Crazy Whisker. Now, when I started writing this video, I knew that Crazy Whisker, his name had to be changed because it is outdated and a little insensitive. So I changed his name to Moongaze, which I thought fit his character a lot more and fit his character within the clan. Essentially, within the clan, I've designated him to be a seer, where he is not a medicine cat, but he does have a very strong connection with StarClan, and this connection is against his will. He is not happy about it. He's essentially like a wizard of sorts. Like any mystical connection to StarClan he has is not like religious. He begrudgingly uses it for the benefit of his clan. But having such a strong connection to StarClan, it has worn him down over the years. So he has like a tired, ruffled appearance and a long beard because again, I kind of see him as like a wizard of sorts. I feel like Moongaze and Blue Sayer have a very close connection because they are the two cats who have the strongest connection to StarClan, and so they understand each other and they understand their pain a lot. But if you think of like the humor of like a 12-year-old, how it's just like random old man who shouts weird things sometimes, like that used to be his character essentially. He was for sure comic relief, but I really like the idea of turning him into just like a worn down like authority figure within the clan. Like maybe the younger cats really just see him as kind of crazy, but all of the older, more senior warriors and authority figures know to recognize and trust everything he says because he has seen shit and he knows shit, even if he is just like grumpy, which is understandable, honestly. And then next up, we have Soft Cloud. So originally his name was Cloudtail. I don't know if you know this, but Cloudtail used to be my favorite warrior. He probably still is, honestly. This My Little Pet Shop white cat was literally just my stand in for Cloudtail. And he was also pretty prominent within the clan. But instead of just, having Cloudtail in my OC original Warriors clan, I decided I was gonna change him up officially. So I renamed him to Soft Cloud. Still has that homage to Cloudtail. And I also decided I really wanted him to be like a bard or like a storyteller within the clan. He is the clan's official historian, but he has a fun twist. I really enjoy the concept of like a large bellowing bard who just like has a super loud laugh, maybe can't sing really well, but is like a hoot to be around. So that is essentially what I inspired Soft Cloud to be like. He's a huge, fluffy guy who just is always laughing and joking, and he has a story for literally any situation. Like, he has memorized all of the past leaders, all of the roles. He specifically memorizes stories that his elders taught and their elders before them told. He does not have an apprentice to pass down all of his stories to yet, though, but I think that an apprentice bard would be a really cool character. And I feel like having a bard or a storyteller, historian, if you will, is like a character that could be utilized really interestingly in Warriors. So I am filling the need to have bards and warriors. Alrighty, and next up we have the queens. Alright, so first up we have Pink Toes. As you can tell, this is actually Seraphina, also from the Barbie Princess and the Pauper. I actually got with the Barbie doll when I was younger. And she was always a queen, mainly due to the fact that she was cursed to always being laying down, and the inside of her little figurine is hollow, so I could easily squish all the babies up inside of her. And she could just like be pregnant. She was the only cat who could just be pregnant. So that was like a fun mechanic to have as a kid. The inside of her like figurine is incredibly dirty. She was played with a lot. Many fun adventures in the mud and the front lawn with all the other cats. I don't know if you've noticed, but I feel like you can't really see it in a lot of the pictures, but all of these figurines are incredibly dirty. There's like so much dirt caked into all the little crevices. I'm sure, as you can also notice, her kids are one a lion and the other one is a polar bear. Like, as I said before, I didn't have a lot of cats at my disposal, so I pretty much did whatever I wanted. I renamed the lion. The lion used to be Lion Kit, obviously, but I renamed him to Dirt Kit because he is the single most dirty figurine out of all of them. Like, I don't understand how he's dirty because normally those little guys are like super rubbery, but he's like hard from how much dirt is on him. So I just renamed him to Dirt Kit and I made him a cute little like chocolate seal point. He's adorable. And the polar bear I always remember as being Sky Kit. The polar bear was actually my brother's and I stole it from him. That's Sky Kit's backstory. Pink Toes never really had a character. She was, I feel like if anything, she probably just embodied Seraphina. But I like to think of her as like a more badass version of Daisy. Like, she did used to be a kitty pet, but she loved the life of a warrior and was just like a fierce fighter. But then she got pregnant and she's a very loving and doting mom and she's going to raise her kids to also be badass fighters and they will be an unstoppable trio. She doesn't have a mate. I don't remember who was the dad for any of her kids, but that's fine. If anything, I do really feel like Pink Toes is actually a lesbian. I can see her and Blue Sayer being together if I'm being real. Alrighty, and for our next queen, we have Sand Creek. Um, she was a staple as well for the longest time. She was one of the original cats from our little tube. She was pretty close to Fire Spots, and you might be able to guess what's coming with Fire Spots and Sand Creek, but they were basically knockoff versions of Firepaw and Sandpaw for a little bit. Although Sand Creek in her iteration did just kind of like skip the mean girl phase and just like jump straight into being like a cool and competent warrior. She was always really cool, but again, she was cursed to be a queen from permanently laying down. I mean, in the beginning, even though she was often paired with Fire Spots, that quickly fell away as Fire Spots and Mudfeather became best friends and had a gay bromance. Sand Creek just kind of did her own thing, being a single mom. And I really liked how her design came out. I always thought the little brown spot on her forehead of her minifigure was kind of weird, but I really like the mask that got incorporated into it. And then we also have Tiny Kit here. Tiny Kit was always just kind of paired with her for no real significant reason. Tiny Kit just was Sand Creek's. I think the real reason that Tiny Kit got paired with Sand Creek is because Sand Creek was a fan favorite slash my favorite, so she got the cuter kitten, and then Pink Toes had to have the polar bear and the lion. So I think that's the meta explanation for why that happened. Alrighty, and now onto our apprentices. We only have the two. They are Fierce Paw and Feather Paw. Now, these two models, I remember very specifically getting them at a hobby store in a mall. Like, not like a Hobby Lobby or like a craft store, but it was specifically for model trains and model planes. And they just had a bin of plastic cats. So I got Fierce Paw and Feather Paw from them. They were always apprentices just because they were very mid sized compared to all the other ones. Featherpaw, very much inspired by Feathertail, and Fiercepaw was always kind of inspired by like Lion Blaze. He had the same vibe, but maybe a little bit more chaotic. It's kind of hard to see in the photo of him, but he has these three lines on his forehead that just make him look a little bit angry all the time. Very much like crazy child with spiky hair energy. But since these two figures were manufactured by like the same company and painted the same, they both have black tails or black tip tails for really no reason. So I incorporated that into the design. And so now they actually do somewhat look like siblings. Because of their black tails, we can maybe hypothesize that they are Black Tail's children, but we'll never know.
Fierce Paw was pretty much always the apprentice of our next warrior, who we will get into. Featherpaw kind of moved around. She was just very mild and timid, so she was basically anyone's apprentice. I know sometimes she was a medicine cat apprentice, so yeah, we have the wild and crazy Fierce Paw and the soft and mild Featherpaw. I don't remember Featherpaw's warrior name, but I know that Fierce Paw always became Fierce Blaze. Not a surprise to anyone there. Alrighty, and here we have Roaring Voice, the mentor of Fierce Paw. He was also somewhat Lion Blaze coded, a little bit Bramble Claw coded. He was a deputy most of the time. He wasn't a senior warrior, but he was one of the more memorable warriors. He kind of placed himself into positions of authority, kind of a hothead in battle, very loud, for no fault of his own. You can see in his lion minifigure that his mouth is permanently open, so that did give him the character trait of yelling pretty much everything he said, hence the name Roaring Voice. Man, Roaring Voice is such a mouthful of a name, but it's very unique, and I came up with it when I was 10, so it's staying. And then his design is much more lion inspired, like Snake Pelt, and I think it reflects his minifigure really well. I really liked how it came out. Man, I can hear my cat wanting to come into my bedroom, and he is scratching at the door, but I am trying to record, and if I let him in, he will step on the keyboard and the desk and knock everything over and be a nuisance, so, you know. Will you stop? Go away. Roaring Voice did also have a reoccurring mate named Dew Spots, and they usually had like a forbidden romance. I don't remember why. Forbidden romance was just cool, so then they had a forbidden romance. But we'll get into Dew Spots a little bit later. But yeah, that's essentially Roaring Voice in a nutshell. Alrighty, and now we have the infamous, well, not infamous, but we have the regularly mentioned Fire Spots. Now, as I mentioned before, Fire Spots is the son of Blacktail. He is also Blue Sayer's sibling, and I very much like to headcanon. Well, I guess if it's my if he's my OC, it's not really headcanon, it's just more canon. But I do like to picture that he is trans because he is a male calico. And you can kind of see the similarities in his design with Blue Sayer. He always very much was a Firepaw, Fireheart stand in, the main character a lot of the time. Ignore the paint on his face and chest. Keen eyes will notice that they are the pan colors. Um, it was a thing uh, when I was exploring who I am. Not really accurate anymore, but it's like a little nugget of nostalgia just left behind. I feel like Fire Spots is also kind of like Sonic coded in the way that he's just like some teenage punk. He's constantly like getting into mild trouble and being snarky about it. Overall, a very fun, lighthearted character. He became best friends with Mudfeather, um, and obviously very gay there. Yeah, he was always one of the fan favorites. And again, by fan favorites, I mean my favorites. He's one of the originals. You gotta have love for him. Alrighty, and next we have Dew Spots, famous love interest of Roaring Voice. She is also the sister of Cheetah Fang, and you can see it in her design. I pull up Cheetah Fang's reference there. Very similar, but her colors are more in line with her original model. She was always very like stoic and cold, not very outgoing, but she took her job as a warrior very seriously. And because she was often much more quiet, not talking very much, she was the perfect foil for Roaring Voice. The man who yells and the woman who just kind of like stares at you coldly until you shut up. On the original toy, her cheetah eye stains, the black lines there, they always looked very like emo to me. I feel like they look more like tears than the traditional like lines down the muzzle. So I kind of incorporated a little bit of a mild goth aesthetic into her design. Cheetah Fang also had the very long eyelashes. That's because he's gay like that. And while Dew Spots' eyelashes aren't as severe, they kind of give similar vibes. Now, she did not approve of her brother's antics pretty much any of the time. She was always a lot more favorable to the heroic hearted characters like her pooky, roaring voice. So she was always just like a silent, stoic type, supporting the main cast. Alrighty, and now we have Fox Frost. She is actually Mudfeather's mom, so you can kind of see a little bit of similarities in their designs. And yeah, Fox Frost's minifigure was just an Arctic fox. Yeah, cats were kind of sparse, as I've said a couple times. So she was basically just like a Frost Fur stand in. I know Frost Fur wasn't very prominent in The Prophecies Begin, but she was a big enough character, and The Prophecies Begin was my favorite series, and the only one I really cared about. So she was prominent enough to be reincarnated into Fox Frost. I always thought her death was a little bit underwhelming. I don't really have a whole lot to say about Fox Frost. She wasn't like a main character, but she was a very common reoccurring supporting member. She was used all the time. I really liked her minifigure. It has like a glitter shimmer on it, so obviously I used her all the time. She was constantly in the background. Overall, she was just very cute. Alrighty, and here we have Brine Fur. He has gone over a lot of different iterations over the years. I remember an Otter Fur, I remember a Brine Foot, but Brine Fur is the most recent iteration of him. I got this one also at the consignment shop I mentioned very briefly at the beginning, and he just looked like an otter to me for some reason. I like looking at him now, I can recognize, I think he was supposed to be a mountain lion of some kind, but I don't know why I had otter in my head. So his name was Otterfur for a while. But then I really liked the idea of using Brine in a warrior name. And at some point early on in his design, he just had these big white paws. So Brinefoot was born, and then Brine for his current iteration. I just really like the design, the dull ginger, the large white paws, brine, just like the aesthetic as a whole is just perfect. I love it. And he is Blacktail's brother. He shares a lot of characteristics with Blacktail, but is a little bit more on the gruff side, not quite as eager to seek the diplomatic options when it comes to solving issues. And he also loves to swim. He's basically does a lot of mud swimming, I imagine, in Mud Clan. Yeah, not a whole lot to say about Brine Fur. I just keep him near and dear to my heart. Here we have Wood Fur. I really do not remember what Wood Fur's original name was. This name, I'm pretty much going off the list that I found in the cabinet. I don't really think Wood Fur ever really had like a set name. Wood Fur was always just like around and was used to be like irritating, like an irritating little child. Because of those short legs, I decided to make Mud Fur a little munchkin cat. You can see him. And I gave him a mustache because I love mustaches on cats. I think they're perfect. I don't even know where I got this minifigure. It's just been around since like as long as I can remember. So I have no idea what it's originally from. But I think Wood Fur's new design really encapsulates the key elements of his original figure: the super long tail, the short legs, the little ears. All around, I think the design came out really well. Again, Wood Fur never really had like a big role, but was just always there. Since the figure was so unique, it was used a lot when we were playing with it. Wood Fur was just always around, prominently in my mind. Alrighty, and lastly, we have the elders. Just the one elder for today. I know Snake Pelt could probably be considered an elder, but here we have Gorseheart. Now, Gorseheart's minifigure, as you might notice, is severely mutilated. I had originally, it was a little like lioness figurine that got body parts cut off of and red paint put on. And Gorseheart's original name was Bloodface. Yeah, really horrifying a little bit. But I wanted to change the name, and I think Gorseheart really worked well. It just encapsulated what I envisioned for the character. Very gruff, battle hardened veteran. With the character design update as well, I really wanted to mimic the vibe of a veteran, so I kind of chose army colors. The dark green, I think, really sells it, and I think he looks great as a Calico. I think it came out really well, having him just be very battle scarred. I think it takes the character from just like a cheap joke to like an actual character who is cool. And I've placed Gorseheart with the elders because I think he deserves it. He definitely deserves a break after everything he has gone through. He is a source of wisdom for the clan now. He can just spend the rest of his days chilling and yelling at teenagers, living the life. Alrighty, that is everyone in Mud Clan. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I have been making this video for like over 2 years. I did all of the art like 2 years ago, lost motivation, recorded the first half of this video a year ago, edited most of it, and I just had this like last half to put together, and I could not find the time to do it. But I finally sat down, got the recording done, got the editing done, and now I am happy to finally publish this video. I'm never doing a long video ever again. I do not have the motivation for it, like, at all. It is not within me. I've learned this about myself. I can never try that ever again, but I am making a lot more videos now. Just expect shorter form content. It is a lot easier on my brain to manage. But I hope you guys have really enjoyed this. Again, at the beginning, I said, show me those minifigures you have. I want to see them. I mean it. I better see some more videos on YouTube showing off your old minifigures, and I will be there in the comments. Already, everyone, I hope you have a good one, and I will see you in whatever content I produce next. Already, bye bye.